Hello, Read 585. The purpose of this screencast is to talk to you briefly about Assignment 2, Part 3, which is the final part in the series of Assignment 2. So a look back, we started with conducting some data analysis, starting with compiling demographic data, summative assessment data, and formative assessment data for your site. From there, you needed to identify specific strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in order to create Part 3, which will be your plan for professional learning and student intervention. So for this part of the assignment, you have really been, building up to this with your analysis of the school context in order to, handcraft a model for intervention as well as professional learning to support that intervention that's going to be appropriate for your unique setting. So this part of the assignment is worth 10% of your grade, and I will kind of go through what is expected of this assignment, but also want to remind you that there are 3 sample papers from a previous semester used with permission, so students' names are still on there to give them credit for their work, and I would look at those in detail because they did a really nice job on the assignment. Sample 1 is for elementary level, sample 2, middle school, high school, sample 3 is the community college level. So, having read articles on successful schools and how to use data, what do you recommend that your school do next? So use all of this information that you found through parts 1 and 2 to create a plan, a cohesive plan for your school. You will design a plan to meet the needs of a specific student group you believe are in need of immediate intervention. So hopefully through parts 1 and 2, you've determined a subgroup of students might be, a handful in a specific class at a specific grade or within a certain demographic who need the intervention. And then with reference to the principles of the RTI model, which was learned about in week 8, you will then describe your intervention focus and method. So, what are the specific skills these students are in need of? How did you determine that? By the analysis of the data. What methods will you employ to, do this targeted intervention? You're going to set precise goals for the intervention. So by the end of how many weeks will they be able to do, what specifically? You will need to describe when and how you will gather data to find out if you have been effective. So, how are you collecting baseline data, diagnostic data? When is progress monitoring happening? What are you using to progress monitor? What's the frequency of that? What are going to be your ultimate outcome assessment measures? Then you will outline how you will engage the school's PLC in a 3-month professional learning cycle to build teacher capacity for improved teaching, learning, and student outcomes. So as you'll see in the samples, they did a really nice job of outlining their 3 months and the focus of each meeting within the month for their professional learning cycle. And then what teacher learning will you plan for, and how will you organize for optimal teacher learning? So as you're going to be reading about in weeks 9 and 10, we want to move away from, learning in isolation, but do hands-on, context-embedded, job-embedded learning. So how are you going to incorporate that using different approaches? So for the plan, you must refer to the SWOT analysis and kind of make the bridge between part 2 and part 3. You should identify the specific learning for the specific student groups that are going to occur. You're going to take account the need to involve the school's PLC in any intervention actions. Detail a program of proposed professional learning for 3 months. Indicate how progress will be measured. This is important for the teacher. So how will you know if the teachers have been successful in implementing the professional learning? How will you know for the students if they are successful with the intervention? And then how will you know if the learning that's happening within the PLC has been effective? As always, you should refer to all of the readings and other course materials in addressing the need that this learning plan is stemming from, as well as how you're applying different components and ideas from these readings into your plan. A few tips for success. This paper part should be roughly between 7 to 10 pages of information, APA referenced with cover page and references. I recommend that you be very specific. Really specify the needs of the students, your instructional focus, what the intervention groupings will be like, what's the goal for them, what will instruction look like. Be specific with the goals for teacher implementation as a result of the professional learning, and a way to monitor and measure their learning, as I didn't really see that addressed as much last semester. What are the specifics for your professional learning program? How will you get the PLC up and running? So we know culture, collaboration is really important to get a PLC up and running. So if the site doesn't have that, how are you going to build that? What's specifically going to happen at the first meeting, at the second meeting? Also have a plan for your data. You should be incorporating multiple measures to determine your plan's effectiveness. How are you going to know that teacher practice has actually changed? And again, utilize those course readings to support your recommendations and support the methodology behind the plan you've created. So just a few tips for part 3 as you wrap up this, last in the series of assignment 2. Good luck to you, and let me know if you have any questions.